Well, hello, Paris Paloma fans. It is Ken Lawson, Renaissance Man, and I am back with Labor the Cacophony because I did Labor originally, and a whole bunch of the comments said that for me to really get the power behind the song, that I need to do this version where she's got a mostly female audience, that understands the message that's being put forward. And I think there may be some audience participation-y things. I'm not really sure. I haven't checked into it much. I really appreciate the Paris Paloma's fan base that turned out for the first video and hopefully this one. I did do the fruits also. The Paris Paloma one had I don't know, almost 90,000 views. The fruits got, I think it just broke 1,000 recently after several weeks. So if you haven't seen it and you want to, if you like the way I react, please go and check that out. I would appreciate it. It would really help. Anyway, that's my little rant. I hope that I didn't piss too many people off, and I hope that the ones that actually listen through the whole thing appreciate that I am learning from this video, from the song that she wrote and what she was trying to say. So I'll address some of the lyrics as we go along the way, because some of the lyrics I think are very, even though she's writing it from a one-on-one perspective, saying what happens to so many, she's basically a representation of so many women. So let's go ahead and get into this. Okay, quick disclaimer. Anybody who skipped the entire opening and just watches this part of the video, please don't go into the comments and talk about things without having watched the opening. Don't tell me what I do and don't get without having watched the opening, so that you know where I'm coming from and what I do and don't get. Because this is a complete video. It's not just this section. I have watched this before. For anybody who just skipped ahead, this is my second watch of Labor because people suggested that I go to this one. So let's go ahead and jump into it.
All day, every day, therapist, mother, maid, nymph, then a virgin, nurse, then a servant, just
such a different feel from the original.
so that he never lifts a finger, 24/7 baby machine, so he can live out his picket fence dreams.
Boy.
It's not an act of love if you make her, you make me do too much labor. Why are you hanging on?
Wow, that does hit differently.
So tight to the rope that I'm hanging from.
It does hit differently hearing it from all those women singing it with her. And I like the more powerful drums and the dun, 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 dun. It's really cool. And of course the lyrics through that whole section, basically laying out the patriarchy. But as I said in the opening, it doesn't apply to every man, but it is more men than it should be, for sure. And in some parts of the world, it is pretty much every man. But I didn't catch the first time through that it sounds like she's thinking her only way out may be offing herself. And that's the impression I'm getting from the way the first verse is now. Because my first watch through was, looking at the video, the music, the lyrics, her performance, her voice, and all that. This time I'm really focusing on the effect that the crowd and all has on this song.
So tight to the rope that I'm hanging from. Off this island, this was an escape plan. Carefully timed it, so let me go.
Boy, her voice sounds great here.
Into the waves below. Who turns the orchards? Who fixes up the gables? Emotional torture from the head of your high table.
I like the way she phrases that, the head of your high table, meaning that meaning that he's at the head of the table because he's the man, but also the head of your high table because it's referencing more that he started off with that privilege just by being a man. So that makes not just the head of the table, but the high table, because it elevates, in his mind, it elevates him above her.
And walk back down again to feel your words and the sharp sting.
And obviously he's emotionally abusive, and
Getting fucking tired.
boy, that feels
If our love died, would that be the worst thing? For somebody I thought was my savior, sure make me do
a whole lot of men put on a different demeanor until they're in the relationship.
And the silence once I've a chamber, you make me do too much labor. Apologies for my tongue.
I also like the double meaning of labor with saying, I'm just a baby machine, so that kind of labor, and then the labor that she's having to do basically everything within the relationship so that he can just do whatever the fuck he wants. And once again, when I say he, keep in mind that I'm not saying she's only singing to this one man. She's singing in general about relationships that are like this, and I understand that. But I'm going to be referencing it because she's saying he. I'm going to be referencing it as he. Okay? Sorry, I feel like I have to do so many caveats because it got so toxic in the comments.
Apologies for my tongue.
And I love that,
Busy lapping from flowing cup and stabbing with your fork. I know you're a smart man.
This does hit really different,
Weaponized.
knowing who she's singing to here.
It's dominance.
And I love that false incompetence, just pretending you can't do it all so that she'll do it. Okay. And go back here. And I see that apparently this is mostly watched towards this ending, so they must really get raucous in the crowd. The lyrics in here that I was taking in one particular way when I originally watched it, of saying that if I had a daughter, she would have to go through basically the same thing that she goes through and be conditioned in the same way. And of course, she's talking more in terms, most likely, of societally, that because there are these expectations for women in general, and the way they are taught from the time they're young women or young girls, of one day you'll get married and one day you'll do this, and a lot of girls are still taught with a 1950s mindset or 1800s mindset of your purpose is to make your man happy. And I'm glad that we're getting away from that more. Like I said, I'm sorry to see the backslide that we've had in the last few years. And I think we all know what I'm talking about. And the fact that it's becoming accepted that this backslide is okay, and it is not. And then, of course, another thing I got a little criticized for was I was talking about the way she says capillaries, because in the US we say capillaries, and in the UK it's capillaries. I think it is capillaries. And I was commenting on the way she stressed the syllables, and of course I haven't heard it said that way. But then I was being told, no, you say it wrong because we said it this way first. And it's like, language changes over time. What's accepted and all that in language is different even in different areas where people maybe moved to Australia, although there I think they say it the same way. But when people move to different regions, language changes. And so, but to get away from that, just the thing of, if the majority of this country says it this way and this is how we were taught, that doesn't make it wrong. It makes it different than the way you were taught. So you can't say that because we were taught this way instead of your way that we're wrong. Come on. Just like we won't say that if we happen to have a word that starts here, goes over to the UK or, in Europe and ends up being pronounced a little bit differently, you're not wrong either. It's just different regions will pronounce things different ways. Okay, so talking about the capillaries, and I'm going to say capillaries, in her eyes are bursting, has to do with basically that it's to domestic abuse now and physical abuse. And she's basically saying, it's not that just women go through emotional abuse and the abuse of the patriarchy. It's also the abuse of being allowed to be beaten. And especially in other countries where it is much more acceptable for a woman to be beaten, even by her father, her brothers, whatever. It's disgusting no matter where you are. But, until, well, I have thoughts about that, but I won't get into them because then that would open up a whole nother hate line if I got into anything to do with religion or anything like that. So let's just go ahead and get back into it.
At least I gotta try. Would that be the worst thing? For somebody I thought was my savior, sure make me do a whole lot of labor.
I do love the.
It's cracking me follow, and would that be a bad thing? And the silence haunts our bedchamber. You make me do.
I love hearing the whole crowd singing with her. Ooh. Chills. Oh, ongoing. Wow. You weren't kidding. It's powerful this way. Ooh. I want to go back right there. I really like the way that section sounded. And then the accent of the crowd on a finger, coming in, a finger. It really, really cool. And she has such an effortless quality to her singing in this. It's like she's, since she recorded the song, she settled into the song. And now she's singing to a crowd of people that get what she's getting across. And so she's with her people, When you're making an album, you're having to make it for everybody. Even though this became a women's anthem, she still, when she recorded it, is probably going, this is the way we feel. But knowing that it's also going to be men listening to this going, okay, I never looked at it this way. This is the way women feel on the other side of this. Even if it just changes a few minds, it's better than none hearing it in the first place and none being changed. Okay, let me get back to it.
Just an appendage, live to attend him so that he never lifts a finger. 24/7 baby machine, so he can live.
Well, I would have loved to have seen this in a bigger venue.
It's not an act of love if you make her, you make me do too much labor.
Great mix too. Another chill. It's almost a shame she didn't drop all the instruments out and just let them sing. I was really hoping she would stop there and just continue it with just the voices. because, oh, by the way, this is going to be my next video of hers. So, wow. All right, guys. So that is labor, but I was hesitant to do this one at first because of the semi-hateful comments that probably a small minority of people had. But when they had them, it wasn't just, oh, I don't really like it. It was like, you don't get it and you don't understand, and just laying into me for not being a woman and being able to understand it. Some of them were like, you're never going to get it because you're a man and this is about all men and all men suck, and I get some people feeling that way. I did get that it was more of a societal song as the video went on. Of course, it was filmed as a story between a man and a woman, and so in a first viewing, you're not necessarily going to get, unless you're going in knowing the background of the person that wrote it and the kind of songs they write, and that they tend to be more societally driven. You're not necessarily going to get that that's what it was from the way the video was shot, and that it's a man and a woman. And if you just read the lyrics, it can be read as a relationship video if you don't delve deeper into the larger meaning of it. So, whole bunch of things just, some of them just straight up saying, yeah, I hate men. And so none of you are ever going to get it. And it's not just about certain men, it's about all men. And I vehemently disagree with that. And I know, too, it's not just men, it's society in general, patriarchy. It is all of that. But to throw every guy into that category of it's all men, I'm sure that a lot of you know some men who are very decent men who do their best to treat women properly. And just because they live in a patriarchal society, it does not make them pieces of shit because they benefit from it. It's the society we're living in, and it sucks that that's what the society is. And I hate that we're being dragged backwards away from any progress we had made moving forward, which I did think we were starting to make some progress, trying to get more equality in pay and, more laws to respect when women come forward for abuse, whether it's domestic or whatever other kind. So, yes, I do get that. But you have to cut people slack. I also saw women. I went and checked other reactions. I saw some women getting raked over the coals for not getting the message the way that those people wanted them to. And you got to remember that a lot of you have lived with this song for a long time. And maybe the first time you heard it, I don't know if you got it exactly the way you get it now, the very first time you heard it. And reactors, that's what they're doing. It's a first time reaction, and they're going off the video being put forward to them. So sometimes you have to do your research or listen to it more and then look into those things before you get it. So try and cut other reactors slack and other men, and try not to. I don't think Paris Paloma went into it going, I'm going to write a song that is strictly for women to be able to say, this is what men do to us. I think it's also meant to educate men in that this is how women feel on the other side of the relationship that they are in. And of course, I know worldwide, this is a much bigger problem. Because, I live in the United States, some of you in the UK, it's all these different places. We don't have to deal with the amount of, and women here don't have to deal with the same level as some of the Middle Eastern countries where women are definitely looked at not just, there's they get less pay. They're looked down as a little bit lower than a man. There, they are looked at as down here below a man. And I mean, it disgusts me, especially like in Afghanistan, where they were finally getting to go to school and do all these things and try to become more a part of society. And then as soon as that fell apart, it was, okay, you're done. You're not that anymore. You're back down to being just an appendage to serve a man. And I read through the lyrics again, just so you know. I wanted to refresh my memory before I get into this. And so there you go. I just wanted to address that because I know I'm still going to get people, even though I go through this and talk about the societal part of it and all of that, there are still going to be those hateful comments down there that go, you still don't get it. You'll never get it because you're a man. And that is true. I am a man, and so I won't ever get it in the same way that women do, because I don't have to deal with the daily grind down of patriarchal society. And until we drag ourselves out of being a patriarchy, that's just going to be the case. But living in a society and supporting that society are two different things. So try to remember that when you're laying into people in the comments, for other people that comment, or that do reactions to this down the line. Remember that this is a first time watch for those people, and try to be kinder. I know it's a small minority of you, but it's enough of a minority that there are probably 30 or 40 at least comments like that, of just calling men pieces of shit. And it doesn't matter what you do, you're the problem. And it's just not right, just in the same way it wouldn't be to say that because the Kardashians put themselves up as sex symbols that are just this and just that, or anybody that markets themselves that way, that every woman should be condemned for what a portion of women do. And I'm not saying it's proportional. I'm not saying it's the same thing, because we aren't in a matriarchy where, you know, that, but you do have women that have power. Real quick, one person made a good comment, and they said this isn't about just the way men treat women. It's about the way powerful people treat people that don't have the power to go against it, or don't think they have the power. And that is very true, because there are some powerful women that treat men and women below them like shit. Are we going to judge all women on what they do? No. Just like all men can't be judged on what the ones who do treat women like shit do. So I'm sure I'm going to get the hate comments and on this, but it'll be because I'm trying to widen the lens out and not make it such a generalization for either side. Because there are some women that would say that the person they're with is the most wonderful person in the world, and that they don't fall into that category. And if they said that to some of these women in the comments, they would say, you just don't understand. You don't understand that you're still being put down. And it's like, yeah, but I'm only talking about this guy. I'm not talking about all men. I'm saying this man and maybe this man and this man. So try not to lump everybody into a generalization, just like men shouldn't generalize women into one thing. So, and I would also say a lot of men, not a lot, but a very small percentage of men that are in these kind of relationships as well, because there are some that are domestically abused and all of that. You get it in every situation, but it is the majority women. I do recognize that. All right. But anyway, I hope that I didn't piss too many people off. I hope that you were on board with at least hearing my viewpoint, whether you agree with it or not, as I have listened to your viewpoints as well. Even if I may have thought they were harsh, I understand where you're coming from. And I understand that especially people who either have been through this or know people who have been through this or know several people who have been through this are going to have a much harder stance on it than people who have not. So anyway, I think the whole thing is Paris probably wrote the song to try and expand awareness. So let's expand awareness and know that it goes beyond just a general focused narrow view. All right? So that's all I can ask. But for now, you guys have a great day, great night.